connections to wrinkle.
Very few artists can match their father's legacy or influence. Femi Kuti is no exception, but is a successful musician in his own right, while continuing to honor his father's legacy. Fela Kuti, arguably one of the most influential African musicians of the 20th century, a larger-than-life figure who for millions of Nigerians was a hero for his fearless opposition to military rule and his controversial lifestyle. He invented Afrobeat, merging Ghanaian highlife with jazz, funk, and native Yoruba music. His music mecca was The Shrine, a dingy club on the outskirts of Lagos that was also one of Africa's most famous nightclubs. The original Shrine was closed after Fela's death in 1997, but Femi Kuti and his brothers and sisters rebuilt a new club, keen to carry on the family's tradition for music and protest. Talk to Al Jazeera caught up with Femi Kuti at the New Africa Shrine in Lagos. Femi Kuti, thank you so very much for talking to Al Jazeera and welcoming us to the New Africa Shrine here in Lagos.
Thank you very much.
Now, before there was the New Africa Shrine, there was the Shrine, the original Shrine.
Yes.
Tell us about what that meant to you, what the Shrine means to you, and why it was so important for you to resurrect this place.
At first, it meant a lot to my father. I mean, it was a place of worship where he worshipped his ancestors. So it was very important for him, where he worshipped gods, African gods. So it meant a lot to him. When he died, I saw it. I thought it was very important for us to preserve it as a tourist attraction because people will want to know the shrine, because when he died, it was such a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I thought people would want to know where he sat, the stage. People will just, I knew people all over the world would want to come there and see this for themselves.
Does Fela's spirits live on here, you think?
I believe so. I think not just him. I think it's a place of worship where we worship people like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. It's like, I would have loved a little library. So you have like there's where they sell like ideological books there. So I want people to read about African history. I want people who have fought for the emancipation of Africa. I want this place to be what the church is like to the Christians or the mosque is like to the Muslims. This is the African thing. We need to pay homage to people who sacrifice their life, their time, fighting for Africa.
Now, you began performing in the same Afrobeat style as Fela Kuti, a style which he invented in the late 1960s. How do you define the essence of Afrobeat? For someone who doesn't know what Afrobeat is, what does it mean?
Right now, I think the essence now becomes fighting for the underprivileged. But musically speaking, the essence will come from his roots, really, in Abeokuta, because my father grew up learning African traditional folk songs, which was with the masquerades in Abeokuta, all this. And many of these songs were created by his grandfather, then his father, who were preachers, and they had a lot of hymns. The national anthem of Abeokuta was composed by his father. So, and then my father was the pianist of the school. Mm-hmm. So he already had all this background. Then he went to England to study classical music. He fell in love with jazz. Came back and high life was the groove. So I think all this incorporates the essence of the Afrobeat.
Now you're credited with making Afrobeat more accessible to the mainstream. In the United States, for instance, with your first album, Shoki Shoki, and that famous song, Bang Bang Bang, which everyone loves, of course. How has the genre evolved under Femi Kuti? What is your definition of Afrobeat?
I just needed to find my voice in this chaos in my father's life. And I knew I could never be like him, or I did not want to really be like him. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to be Femi, the son of Fela, not Femi copying Fela. And so I had to come up with my own rhythms, my own melodies, my own groove. And the first thought that came to my mind was to speed in the tempo.
Speeding the tempo?
Yeah. And which didn't go well with Nigerians at all, because my father's week was more of very laid back with this heavy political message. And so Nigerians didn't like it. Right. Europeans caught on immediately.
Of course.
So I was making a name for myself before the Shoki Shoki in Europe and America, before Shoki Shoki came out.
That hit song, Bang Bang Bang, in fact, was banned in Nigeria.
Yes.
But you chose to perform it at the World Cup. Why? I mean,
they asked me to perform it.
That song?
Because South Africans love the song.
Why was it banned in Nigeria? Because of its sexual?
It was too sexual.
Too sexual.
But they were playing songs like "Let's Talk About Sex, Baby." So they were like kind of. I think the real reason why they banned that song was the rest of the tracks were very political, like "Sorry Sorry," which was very political, and I think they wanted to stop the radios from really playing the album itself. So banning Bang 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 was just an excuse. Now South Africans love Bang Bang Bang, so they were just showing it through satellite so Nigerians could really watch it. And it was a very big hit in South Africa.
Now, Femi, you followed in many ways in your father's footsteps, but he had a more controversial lifestyle, of course. Yes. They were the women, the alcohol, the drugs. And I see a sign there that says drugs are not allowed in the shrine. And I want you to tell me about that in a second. But why did you choose to lead a different lifestyle? Of course, and I'm sorry to bring this up, Fela died of AIDS-related illness in 1997. Was it a conscious choice on your behalf not to lead the same lifestyle as your father?
You don't have to be sorry. It's a fact, and I don't think anybody should be ashamed. There is no stigma in it. I mean, I think because we lack education on the topic is why people discriminate.
Do you think it's evolved now that people are more ready to talk about AIDS in a country like Nigeria than they were back in the 1990s?
No, not really. I think people still discriminate with people with HIV. So that's a very big. People with HIV are still very ashamed. And but I never understood why anybody will discriminate with anybody who had an illness of any kind, because of what I wanted to stand for. And I saw the battle with the government. I did not want the government to give the same excuses they gave for not listening to my father to me. I thought the topic was too important for me to be having a good time and talking about these serious issues, and the government using my lifestyle as an excuse to avoid the truth of the message, which is what they did with my father. Right. Now everybody's talking about my father and they regret a lot of things like not listening to him. And there's a young generation that is very vibrant, that he is their icon, he is their hero, he's a legend to them. They admire him, they talk about him every day. But in his time, nobody wanted to listen to him because of the women or the drugs, or they gave all the excuses not listening to him. Understanding that many of these people were very hypocritical with their lifestyles. Many of them were doing the same things he was doing, but they were doing it behind closed doors.
Right.
And he was a person that never hid what he was about. He liked women. He told everybody he liked women.
In the West,
he loved smoking grass. He told everybody he was smoking grass. So, and why we have this sign in the shrine is to protect the shrine, because a lot of people smoke. Now, we don't want people to believe we're encouraging drugs here, and for the government to use it as an excuse to raid, which was what they were doing in the first. When the shrine was built, it was the excuse to keep on raiding the shrine. We are drug addicts, we are selling grass here, blah, blah. They gave all the excuses to stop this place from functioning. So, I don't smoke. Many of us around me don't smoke. So we said, look, let us put the sign up. So anytime they come here, we can, it will be a fact that we are not encouraging, and we don't deal in drugs here.
Fela in the West was known as a man who had 27 wives.
Yes, he did. But he was legally married to my mother at this time. He married my mother in 1961. So people were like trying to even encourage my mother to sue him for bigamy at this point in time of this big marriage. But my mother loved him too much to delve into supporting the government against my father, right? So, but he did marry 27 wives. And I love women as well. But I don't believe in that institution. So there are a lot of women around me, but they don't have to be my girlfriends but I love, everything about me was built around women. My mother was very important to me. my grandmother was so important to me. I had two sisters, an elder sister who is still very dominant in my life, who I still ask for advice. My younger sister died of cancer, unfortunately. So, but I mean, I don't think I could function the way I would have in the past or even today without women around me. My life would be boring.
I think a lot of men would say they'd be better off without women, but that's another discussion. Music, of course, is a family affair in the Kuti family. Your brother, Seun Kuti, also performs. Some people say, he stayed closer to Fela's style of Afrobeat, that he's more of the reincarnation of Fela Kuti. How does that make you feel?
Indifferent. If he chooses that, if that's his, I don't want, I was brought up to be my father. I used to dress like him.
What sort of relationship did you have with him?
It was very close, but we had a very big fight for a couple of years because he studied music. He went to one of the best universities in England and he refused to teach me music. So I was very much against him for this at a part of my life where I couldn't understand why he didn't want me to read and write music, and he went to the best university and he did practically everything to discourage me. But he wanted me to play music. Right. So we had this big fight that, how do you want me to be successful? And he just kept saying, don't worry, you'll be successful. When I did become successful.
He was right?
Yes, he was right, but I wouldn't put my son through that kind of mental. I think he took a very big risk. My father liked the street kid. He wanted me to grow up in the streets. He didn't want me to grow up like with the silver spoon or have this posh life because he was very popular. So he just wanted me to be a notorious good boy, kind of. Having said this, yes, I am quite successful. Yes, I have developed music to the best of my ability today. Probably if I did go to school, my music would be boring, blah, blah, blah. Probably. This is what nobody will ever know. But my son, he's studying classical music right now. He's playing piano like incredibly. He's reading things like I would only dream of reading. I'm so impressed, I'm proud of him that I wouldn't toy with I won't take any risk because of the love and how important his development is for me. Probably my father had to do that we have to always understand the age and times we're at. In the 70s, my father coming from America, fighting the government, what was going on in Nigeria, coming out of colonialism, bad leadership, corruption. Probably my father had to do that with my life. I don't think I could take that same risk with my son.
Right.
There's technology, there's so many things going on that I can't afford to risk his life with.
Femi, let's talk a bit more about your music. Your most recent album is No Place for My Dream.
Yes.
Why such a pessimistic title?
It's a fact. It's not pessimistic. It's real.
How so?
If you listen to the lyrics are very true. When you look at life and you study history, there will always be evil. There will always be bad. So it's a fact. So, and it's not me saying it. It is me setting out to achieve the dream and being discouraged by an audience saying there's no place for this dream. I'm not saying it. So when you listen to the lyrics, I'm determined, a young man, I'm determined to set out to achieve greatness, peace, love, togetherness, blah, blah. And people are saying, look, you will end up a dead hero, like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King.
Right.
Every great man has died fighting for this cause. What makes you different? You are going to end up the same way. Give up the dream. Okay, and they go on to say, look, there'll always be bad and good. Life is balanced. Life is about balance. So there will be good, there will be negative, and that's life. Accept it.
What about the album Africa for Africa in 2011? Yes. What was your inspiration for this album and what was the message there? Africa for Africa. What are you trying to say there?
I thought it was very important for Africa to tell its story. And bottom line of the album is Africa needs to love Africa. Africa does not need the West or anybody to teach us to care about our culture, our tradition, or when you watch the news, it's Europe or America telling us, oh, look at the poor children in Congo, oh, poor Somalia. We need to tell this story. We need to be the ones concerned about this story, telling ourselves the story. like Bring Back Our Girls or Boko Haram, or we need to tell the world story to ourselves. Africa needs to take its battle to itself.
Now, an
for itself.
interesting thing you said that democracy is not the right form of government for Africa, that democracy doesn't work in Africa. If not
Democracy doesn't work anywhere.
Then what? Okay, in the case of Africa, which you know better, if not democracy, then what?
No, excuse me, I think I know a bit of global history. Democracy doesn't work anywhere. And we need to be real with it. We pretend. Let's look at England.
All right, let's look at England.
England is very hypocritical. The Queen rules England, and England pretends it's been democratic. Whoever wins, the Prime Minister has to go back to the Queen, and the Queen will say, go and form my government. Then they force the rest of the world to be democratic. If Africa had a king and pretended and acted like England, England would be the first to say, no, you are not democratic. So in Africa, our kings don't exist anymore. Our queens don't exist. But this was the culture. What the Queen is doing in England or any part of Europe, this was an African thing. We had our kings, we had our chiefs, we had our queens. Now they don't exist. They are non-significant in our culture or tradition anymore in society. We are forced to accept this system of government. Democracy, you now have to understand, was a system of African culture and tradition at one time. And it was just taken from us by the Greek. So when you understand this history, we already practice this.
So
now,
you think that Africa needs to go back to the days of kings and queens?
We need to go back to find out and admire ourselves. By doing this, we'll probably, because of this new times we're at, we'll come up with another system of government that will be satisfactory to everybody. But let's look at democracy. If 49 people say yes and 51 say no, 49 will always topple 51's government, as we see in America or any part of the world today. Everybody's trying to bring down. Government should be about everybody agreeing on the way forward for the future of that country.
What do you make of
unanimously?
What do you make of the Arab countries that have gone through the so-called Arab Spring, the revolutions in places like Egypt, like Libya?
As you see, it's failing. They all wanted to go through the way of democracy, and they are failing. They are failing woefully. Now there is no peace. Like Syria, like Egypt, like Libya is the best example of this story. It doesn't work. It will never work.
So you think an Arab Spring sort of revolution couldn't happen in Africa to get rid of the different regimes that are seen as dictatorial?
Africa cannot afford to go the way of the Arab Spring. Take a country like Nigeria. If it's true we're 160 million and we end up like Syria or Egypt or Libya, who's going to come to our aid? Imagine 100 million people looking for shelter or looking for refugee camps. Who's going to feed us? The world is already broke. Africa should not even discuss this format of change. Now, we need to understand our history. We need to appreciate the transatlantic slave trade. We need to appreciate the trans-Sahara slave trade. We need to understand 500 years of slavery. We need to understand and appreciate 100 years of colonial rule. We need to understand and appreciate 50, 60 years of bad governments. There is no way we will not be the way we are today. And it will take us probably another 100 years to come out of this mess we are in today.
Okay.
But the way to go out of it is not by a bloody revolution.
Okay, let me ask you about Nigeria, your country.
Yes.
What do you see as the most critical problem of governance in Nigeria
Corruption.
today?
Easily corruption. What is killing Nigeria today is greed and corruption. And this is because education never taught us to care about ourselves. Education was always my house, my this, I want to acquire. Education that we were taught was about greed and material wealth. And people in power are just greedy and they just want material wealth, not about concerning about the love of their people and development.
Of course, Nigeria has gotten a lot of attention lately on the world stage because of Boko Haram and the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls. Do you think it's a good thing that the world is finally paying attention to a problem that for a long time was seen as being an exclusively Nigerian problem, and that's the problem of Boko Haram?
I think you brought up the topic of bring back our girls. Don't forget about the boys that were killed, over 50 of them in their sleeps in Ube. Nobody said anything about this.
Well, why do you think this particular incident, this case, captured the world's imagination more so than the other incidents?
I think politics in the world is very hypocritical. Now remember, it wasn't governments that brought this to the forefront. It was the minority, the poor people, the people in the streets that brought it to the forefront, and governments have taken it up to act because of pressure by the ordinary people on the streets, putting pressure on their governments. Now we have to ask this question. Does intelligence, CIA, the equivalent in Europe and everywhere, they have the intelligence to already know that Boko Haram was becoming a big problem in Nigeria? Why did they not discuss secretly already before it got to this stage with Nigeria? They must fully, because of we know how great and what's this English word? Perfect their intelligence system is. They must know Nigeria doesn't have an army that is equipped to fight Boko Haram. If we in Nigeria know that, and I have nothing to do with intelligence, just common sense tells me the Nigerian army cannot deal with this crisis. You want to tell me that America should not have been discussing, or England, with the president of Nigeria? Look, take this issue very seriously before it gets out of hand. Because, two, if it gets out of hand, the whole world is going to be in trouble. As we see, like what is happening in Iraq today. Right. America goes to Iraq illegally. Now we need to get the history straight. Bush went into Iraq with
the case of the weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, and everybody said there are no mass weapons of destruction. They still went there. Now they have gone. Now, they said they went there to make Iraq better. Is Iraq better? Is Iraq better today? From the news, before I left my house, before this interview, I'm scared. Because if all these fundamentalists and people take over Iraq and they make it a terrorist home for themselves, right, the world is going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. So what has America and England done? They said they are making the world safer for everybody. Right. They have not made it safe.
Femi, for millions of Nigerians, Fela Kuti was a hero because of his fearless opposition to military rule. They beat him many times, they jailed him, burnt his house, and so on. You've been quite vocal yourself on Nigerian politics. Why do you think that is your role as an artist? Why is it important for you to talk about these things?
That's my home training. And I don't see any love story of mine that is more important than the issues we have spoken about today.
But you know, seeing what your father went through, the beatings, the arrests, and so on, don't you fear sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes, of course. I fear for my life, I fear for the life of my kids. But then, we all have to die one day. Should I be silent over the truth? These things bother me. Criticizing England and America could be a problem musically for me. People will shy away from my music because of the things I'm saying. But This is something I truly believe. I think terrorism, I'm scared of what the future of the world is, the way the world is heading today. I'm scared of Nigeria. I'm scared if there is a revolution. I'm scared for the future of my kids. I'm scared for so many things. And these are things I need to voice. I'm voicing my fears.
But is it all gloom? I mean, for you, you sound very pessimistic. Fela Kuti
once said, I'm not pessimistic. I'm real.
You're real. Okay, you say it's reality, but some would say it's a very negative outlook. Fela Kuti once said, if there's a clean, progressive government in one African country that knows what it's doing, then the whole of Africa can be liberated. Do you think there is such a country today on the continent?
I thought that country would be South Africa during Mandela and after Mandela. Unfortunately, it's taking more time. So I do believe if there is a progressive African government, pressure will be put on the rest of African countries to develop fast and catch up, yes. But then, where is the African government like that? It doesn't exist.
Femi Kuti, thank you so very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.